Maya was used to the noise. The hum of vehicles outside her apartment, the honking horns, the rattle of trains below her window. It was all part of her everyday life in Mumbai. A 28-year-old graphic designer with a quiet love for stories and solitude, Maya spent most of her time behind a screen, designing ads and websites, sipping bitter coffee from a chipped mug, and dreaming of places she'd never seen. Her days were scheduled down to the minute. Wake up, shower, catch the 8:15 local, work till 6, dinner by 8, scroll through social media until her eyes gave up on the screen. She had grown so accustomed to the rhythm that even weekends felt like work. But sometimes, when the sun dipped behind the skyline and her inbox finally quieted, Maya allowed herself to wonder. What if life had more to offer than just this routine? One Thursday evening, as she returned home soaked from a sudden downpour and frustrated by a delayed train, she found an envelope wedged beneath her door. It was thick and cream-colored, unlike the usual bills and spam she received. Curious, she tore it open and unfolded a letter printed in elegant calligraphy. Dear Maya Kapoor, it read, Congratulations. You have been selected to participate in the Discover India Fellowship, a month-long travel experience for curious minds, creative souls, and brave hearts. Her eyes widened. She had applied for this fellowship on a whim 3 months ago and forgotten about it entirely. Her heart raced. A trip across India, all expenses paid, with only one rule. No phones, no laptops. Just a journal, a map, and an open heart. At first, Maya hesitated. She wasn't a traveler. She liked clean bed sheets, Wi-Fi, and quiet cafes. But something deep within her stirred. A longing, perhaps, to escape the monotony, to see the world with her own eyes instead of through the glow of her screen. After 3 sleepless nights and a teary call with her best friend, she made her decision. She handed in her leave notice at work, packed a small backpack, tucked her sketch pad and pencils into a side pocket, and caught a train heading north toward the unknown. The train to Jaipur was long and noisy, filled with chatter in different dialects, the clink of teacups, and the occasional lull of silence as the sun set beyond the fields. Maya sat by the window, her fingers tapping against the journal on her lap. Outside, the world shifted from the steel gray of Mumbai to the golden plains of Rajasthan. Farmers waved from the fields. Children ran barefoot along dusty roads, and distant temples peeked through the horizon. Everything felt unfamiliar, yet oddly comforting. Maya watched it all, her sketch pad open, capturing hurried lines of camels and carts. Every hour brought a new picture, a new feeling. When she arrived in Jaipur, the air felt different, drier, filled with spice and stories. The streets bustled with color, women in bright saris, vendors shouting in rhythmic tones, and rickshaws weaving through the traffic like dancers in a chaotic ballet. She checked into a modest guest house run by an elderly couple who spoke little English, but had eyes full of warmth. That night, she lay under a slow-moving ceiling fan, listening to the sounds of the city, the distant barking of dogs, the song of a flute from the street below, and smiled for the first time in days. The next morning, Maya explored the Pink City. The Hawa Mahal stood tall like a storybook castle, its hundreds of windows reflecting the morning sun. At every turn, she found something beautiful. A man painting signs by hand, a child playing with pigeons, an old woman stringing marigolds into garlands. She stopped at a roadside tea stall, ordered a masala chai, and sat sketching people as they passed by. That's when she met Aisha. Aisha was a local artist, her fingers stained with color, her smile as warm as the desert breeze. She watched Maya sketch for a while before speaking. "You draw with feeling," she said. "Not just with your hand." Maya laughed, a little shyly, and replied, "I try. There's so much life here. It's impossible not to feel something." The two began talking. Aisha invited her to visit her studio, a small rooftop room above her family's textile shop. There, over the next 3 days, they painted, drank endless cups of chai, and shared stories about childhood, dreams, and fears. Aisha spoke of her love for miniatures and how she wanted to revive traditional Rajasthani art. Maya, in return, shared how her life in Mumbai felt boxed in, predictable, and how this journey was her first real breath in years. Before Maya left Jaipur, Aisha handed her a small notebook. "Fill this with what you see and what you feel," she said. "Travel is not just about places. It's about the person you become along the way." Maya hugged her tightly, unable to say much, and promised to write every day. Her next stop was Udaipur, a city she had only seen in pictures. The lakes there shimmered like mirrors, reflecting palaces that seemed to float on water. She stayed at a quiet homestay where the owner's daughter, Mira, became her companion. Mira was 12, curious and bold, and she insisted on taking Maya everywhere, from hidden stepwells to quiet bookshops. One evening, they took a boat ride on Lake Piccola. As the sky turned orange and the palace lights flickered on, Maya whispered, "This is unreal." Mira nodded, wise beyond her years, and said, "The best parts of life usually are." As the days passed, Maya began to feel lighter. She stopped checking the time. She stopped worrying about what came next. She wrote poems in her notebook, laughed with strangers, and learned to eat with her hands without hesitation. But it wasn't all smooth. One morning, while hiking the hills near Sajangar, Maya lost her way. Her phone, as required by the fellowship, had been left behind. And for the first time, she felt truly alone. The trail had disappeared, and the silence of the forest closed in. Her heart pounded. She tried to retrace her steps, but only grew more confused. Then, in the distance, she saw smoke. Following it, she stumbled into a small village hidden in the hills, where mud houses lined narrow paths and goats wandered freely. An elderly woman saw her and, without a word, led her into her home. She gave her water, a woven blanket, and a warm smile. That night, Maya sat with the woman's family around a fire. They didn't speak the same language, but shared food, laughter, and a few songs. The stars above looked closer than ever. She spent 2 days in the village. The villagers treated her like family, showing her how they cooked, how they told stories through music, and how they lived in rhythm with the earth. When it was time to leave, Maya felt a strange sadness, as if she were leaving behind a forgotten piece of herself. The village chief handed her a wooden pendant shaped like a leaf. "This will remind you to stay rooted no matter where you go," he said in slow, careful Hindi. Maya held the pendant tightly, promising herself she'd never forget. Maya left the village with a tearful goodbye and a mind full of stories. The road ahead now felt like an open book, each step revealing a sentence she had never read before. Her next train took her to Varanasi, the city of life and death, where the sacred Ganges flowed endlessly and the air smelled of incense and old prayers. As she stepped onto the ghats, the ancient stone steps leading to the river, she felt a different kind of energy, one that was slow, deep, and eternal. She stayed at a simple ashram that welcomed travelers and pilgrims alike. Her room had no fan, no mirror, and just one thin mattress. But every morning, she woke up to the sound of temple bells and the murmur of chants. She joined the morning aarti at the riverbank, watching hundreds of lamps float on the water like golden wishes. She met priests and pilgrims, boatmen and beggars, each carrying a story in their eyes. There was Mohan, a boatman who had never gone to school but could recite entire poems from memory, and Anjali, a widow who had lived in the city for 30 years and found peace in lighting a lamp every evening for her lost husband. One day, Maya sat sketching the river from a quiet corner when an old man approached her. His name was Kabir Das. Not the saint, of course, but he said he was named after him. He asked if he could sit beside her, and they began to talk. He told her about the philosophy of detachment, of finding beauty in impermanence, and how this city had taught him to live fully without holding on too tightly. "People come here to wash away sins," he said, "but some find the courage to wash away fear." Maya nodded. She didn't say much, but her chest felt heavy, as if her soul had recognized something important but unspoken. That night, she walked along the ghats under the moonlight. She watched families performing last rites, young couples making promises, old sadhus sitting in silence. Life and death danced side by side in Varanasi, and for the first time, Maya understood what it meant to surrender to the flow of life. She wrote in her journal, "Today, I didn't try to capture anything. I just let the city pass through me." From Varanasi, she traveled to the foothills of the Himalayas, where the air was thin and the sky seemed closer. Her destination was Rishikesh, a town known for yoga, peace seekers, and the laughter of the river. She checked into a small retreat center and signed up for a week-long silence program. At first, the idea of not speaking for 7 days terrified her, but she remembered Aisha's words. "Travel is about the person you become." And so she surrendered. Those 7 days changed her more than she could ever explain. Without words, she noticed things more deeply. The way leaves moved in the wind, the sound of her own breath, the kindness in people's eyes. She wrote letters to herself, drew feelings she couldn't name, and cried without knowing why. On the final day, when she finally spoke, her voice felt new, softer, clearer, more honest. She wasn't just learning how to travel, she was learning how to be. On her last evening in Rishikesh, she stood on the Laxmanjula Bridge, watching the river crash against the rocks below. A boy stood next to her, no older than 10, selling postcards. He offered her one with a smile. It showed a sunset over the same bridge they were standing on. Maya bought it, not because she needed a postcard, but because something in his smile reminded her of hope. She turned the card over and wrote just one line. I came looking for adventure. I found pieces of myself instead. As the journey neared its end, she received a message from the fellowship team. A reminder that the program would officially close in 2 days in Delhi, where all participants would gather to share their experiences. Maya boarded her final train with mixed feelings: gratitude, sadness, pride, and something else she couldn't yet describe.